My new bike feels great, but biking to work has also become very political these days. So I'm heading to meet a leading bike advocate in Brooklyn to learn about her organizing efforts with StreetsPAC and Critical Mass. You're Hilda?
Yes.
Nice to see you. We met once before.
Nice to see you.
Yes. I'm Zephyr. Tell me about your involvement in biking to work.
Well, I guess I've always biked to work because it's the easiest, most efficient way, and it's a heck of a lot of fun. And I guess I was always the advocate who just went and rode. When I had kids, I have a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old, we bike them to school as well. And so for me and women and moms and parents, biking to work also kind of has to incorporate doing errands, all these other things. So it keeps me in shape. I am so much happier for it. You know, I don't pity the people in the cars, but I'm really glad that I'm not them on a really nice day.
You do pity them, I can tell.
I feel like if they just knew how great it was, they would just get out of the car and they would be on the bike. So, and actually on a bike, if you get into a traffic jam, I am at times a pedestrian. I could just get off my bike, I could lift it up over my head, get out of the way.
Let's see, I want to see it.
Well, I have my bag in. But if it is, oh, I've got locks and bag.
But look at those muscles.
Well, that's the potholes.
Okay. So I was saying, I have to get off here. You know, we're talking about cycling on a cobblestone street.
You know, there's fantastic. It's not like there's places that don't have cobbles. There's great countries that have done fantastic design changes, incorporating cobbles. And New York City just did one. It's between Canal and I think West Broadway on Bheard.
Yeah.
They've taken the cobbles and they've taken a 2-foot strip of granite. So you've got this historic look. You can ride smoothly and you can maintain your speed because cars are still going.
You just part the cobbles on your bike?
It feels like the causeway, you know, it's the causeway.
Right.
So.
How long have you been biking? To work?
About 28 years.
Okay, you were like pre-early adopter then.
We used to always be freaks. We're becoming more mainstream now. Everyone's out there. You can see celebrities biking to work and celebrities biking to the Oscars. It's great. But it felt like you were one and only for a long time.
So late 90s, when you see another cyclist, do you have sort of a secret wink that you're like, oh, you're one of us freaks? Or do you start to see the when
you
know?
Absolutely did. It was defensive biking. You had very little infrastructure, and what infrastructure was there was never really convenient for where you wanted to go. You had to have a specific attitude.
So when does this start changing?
Probably 2005, 2007, really big design changes happened. And then all of a sudden, this didn't go through this policy or this community board, and there was a backlash. I think it started with a New York Times article with Jeanette Sadiq-Khan. And it blew the changes of designs, which New York needs. New York is the city where people come. We do brand new things, and here our design sense, we're so meek. We're so eager to just please the car driver, and we're not looking at everybody else. And so a number of advocates, this was early 2013, were looking at what is going to happen in the next election. This is the end of Bloomberg. It would be the end of Jeanette Sadiq-Khan, and so we formed StreetsPAC, which is a political action committee to get elected officials to understand complete, livable, and safe streets.
What are the top 2 or 3 priorities of StreetsPAC?
Education. We really have to educate all of these politicians to show exactly what the benefits are. Financially, to make changes to bike infrastructure, pedestrian infrastructure is one of the most immediate turnarounds. It's so incredibly beneficial to cities.
Yeah.
You spend something like $1 for every $12 that comes back to you. And transportation infrastructure for cars is the opposite. You spend $12 for every $1 that comes back.
Yeah.
The truth is that you don't measure how your experience on the street is because of how fast you can get from Canal to Midtown. You know, but it's also what we're experiencing and what that does to retail, what that does to economies of the city, and what it does to people's health. So it's not just one thing, it's an attitude change. And I think I became an advocate when I had children on my bike. To me, I feel that teaching kids how to be good cyclists, how to be good public space users is fantastic. It's the best way is teach the next generation.
Yeah.
And so one of my favorite advocacy groups is Critical Mass NYC, where we lead group bike rides. It's as much for kids as it is for the adults that they have with them.
So what do? Illegally take over bridges with a bunch of kids?
We don't. That's the whole point. And we set up a ride, we route it, and we scout it, and we use the best infrastructure that we can. And you know what ends up happening is we've got this fantastic bit of infrastructure, and then maybe there's like a half-mile gap, and then there's this other fantastic bit of infrastructure. And the same thing that happens when you bike to work is when you're biking with kids. It's just sometimes that half-mile gap where it's almost like going through a battlefield is just not worth it.
Right.
And what looks like a blip on your bike map, it's a chasm. I mean,
I have had this experience. Rightly or wrongly, I still think of biking in the city as a defensive act, in part because of those little blips.
Yes.
Those moments of a kind of real terror.
Yes.
You're sort of
and
like,
it's
I'm not
hard
sure.
to get over them. But at the same time, it's how do we make a change?
So what are the 99% of Brooklynites who do not bike to work? What are they missing?
Well, I think they're missing out on their city. Biking to work, it's one of those things that you just got to do it. You just got to try it.
So let's go biking together.
That sounds great.
I was thinking the bike path along Columbia.
Yes.
Okay.
Right off the water.
Hearing about Hilda's journey as a bike commuter and her advocacy for bike safety makes me want to bike the city myself. I'm going to ride with Hilda to the Brooklyn Bridge, a route many cyclists take every day. Of course, bike commuting is a personal choice, but supporters like Hilda say it's also a benefit to the rest of us New Yorkers. More bikers mean fewer car commuters, so less traffic, less crowded subways. And less gas being used means lower carbon emissions. Bikes don't cause potholes either. They're quieter too, so there's less noise pollution. Not to mention the exercise you get, which means a healthier city. Well, thanks a lot for taking the time to bike with me, talk with me.
Anytime.
This is a Brooklyn show, so I got to stay within the borough. I'm going back to Brooklyn.
Well, with the bike, you can go anywhere, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back into Manhattan, on to the work.
Well, it's really great to see you.
Yes, you too.